both of them are working with other counties in a similar fashion. Fourth Economy has done a similar fashion with York, and eConsult is doing a similar fashion actually in Philadelphia County, as well as Bucks County and some others. And really what we consider this to be is an opportunity to engage in an economic recovery planning and strategy process that would be very inclusive, frankly, extremely inclusive. It would be very focused on our businesses, all sizes, very focused on tourism, very focused on all aspects of tourism, so the Expo Center, et cetera, but also very focused as well on our nonprofit community under Brooke's leadership of really making sure that kind of building on the good work of the CARES grants and the leadership that each of you have put in to ensure that we don't stop with those grants, that we continue to find ways to partner and continue to move the county forward. And so essentially what this would start with is, as Susan has asked, is that both of them would be able to complete a data analysis specifically to Lebanon County, all aspects of Lebanon County, every municipality, every school district, all of the key elements that you as the commissioners would want to see. They would complete that by December. We would have for us by December at least the data components, the analysis from an economic standpoint. We would also begin to, in an inclusive manner, be working towards the next element of the process, which would be the designing the strategies to improve our economic position. So we would partner, again, with all the different sectors that we've talked about so that we would move forward early 2021 with those components to make sure that the state wouldn't have any questions. And we would obviously outline this so that you were comfortable, so that you would have, be able to answer any questions that the Commonwealth may have. It would be highly qualitative research as well as quantitative assessments. And I think that's really, really important because obviously a lot of times we're seeing a lot of quantitative. We're not necessarily seeing the qualitative in some of the assessments that we see today. And so this would have both. We believe that that would help from an economic outlook perspective. It would also help from a planning perspective, all of the different audiences that we're talking about. I think I noted the inclusive part of this, and I want to highlight that. We would propose that this be a partnership with the commissioners. We would propose that however you would deem that, whether Jamie would be working with the group or a commissioner or two commissioners, however would be most appropriate, that Lebanon Valley Economic Development Corporation, obviously the Chamber, Visit Lebanon Valley, and the United Way be very, very involved from a steering committee end. That group would work to pull in through the existing assets of Forward Together Lebanon, but also your input. Who else needs to be there? Maybe some municipal leaders, maybe some superintendents, maybe, whomever, with, again, that purpose of being inclusive. And I think, to break it down for you, we have received 2 proposals. We did actually reach out to more than 2. We reached out to a total of 3. One was one that has done work up in the Luzerne-Lackawanna County, sort of part of Wilkes University. To be honest, their depth and the magnitude of this work, they just wouldn't have that. However, eConsult and Fourth Economy would. Their proposals, frankly, are extremely similar in many ways, their approach. I'll ask Karen and Susan to comment and Brooke to comment on that as well. But from my vantage point, they're very similar. There's some cost difference. eConsult is coming in at $90,000. And then they always say we'll do an on-call economic analysis. And Fourth Economy is coming in just over $120,000, basically all in for both. However, I would say this too. They both have actually done some similar work together in the past. And so, sometimes there is the beauty to say, obviously we're proposing to use some of the funds that Lebanon Valley Economic Development Corporation has been deemed within the CARES funds. But if we would want to challenge them to think about how they could do this together to kind of get the best and brightest of both, they've done that before. In fact, they've done that for Team Pennsylvania, and they've done that for the Pennsylvania Economic Development Association. And so where we stand today is to have this discussion with you. Ultimately, our hope is that you would greenlight the opportunity to move forward. And essentially, what we would propose, open to your discussion, is that we would pull together the group, including to add Jen Kuzo to the group, as well as whoever you would determine on behalf of the commissioners, to literally interview both. I've had an opportunity to speak in length with both, but outside of that, Susan knows both, Karen knows both. However, I think we would want to interview them. We would want to make sure that we're most comfortable as quickly as possible with making a final selection on which one that is, so that we're not just deciding on price, but we're deciding on quality and deciding on results. If we ultimately would want to propose them working together, that can happen very quickly. They know each other well. They're not, yes, they compete, but they're also friendly, cooperative elements. And then, moving extremely quickly into the beginning phase of the data. I have talked with both that we have to move extremely quickly, particularly given the conversation that Susan has had with the Commonwealth. They have no concerns with that. In many ways, obviously, Fourth Economy has done work with the city, but eConsult, they all tend to have a lot of these data sets already in many ways at their disposal, and they have teams, fairly large teams, and they're prepared to move forward. So I'll stop there and just ask Karen, Susan, and Brooke to comment, from their expertise.
Yeah, I see this as an exciting opportunity for the county to move forward together and come up with a plan that's strategically driven, research driven, and implement that so that we can move forward to reimagine our economy and our future for the county. So, I had some concerns with, would this be an eligible use under our CARES funding? I had conversations with Dave Brinton at the state. He said that, it's kind of thinking a little bit out of the box, but he said, if you focus it on COVID, that it's COVID recovery. And he really stressed that it would be COVID recovery. And we'd have the outcome in a draft form by the end of the year. He thinks that it would be an eligible usage for funding. I'd also asked Jamie to check with him as well, because we want to make sure that we're going down the right path and that we're all on the same path together. But I'm excited because I think as an economic developer, working together as a team and being able to work with the commissioners on something that's going to evaluate everything, give us data that we need, and then coming up with that strategic plan, I think it can only enhance our recovery effort.
Can you give an example of one of the other than something in writing, something within it, give an example of what we might hear or see?
Jeffrey, I'll let you move forward with that.
Yeah, so I think Commissioner Litz, in terms of that, some of the things that I'll give you an example of, eConsult, for example, one of the things that they did when they did a similar assessment in Philadelphia was, you may have seen among your colleagues in the county commissioners and, et cetera, association in the Southeast, an increased focus in cell and gene therapy. That is actually a major area that came out of a similar project that they did in that region, which now the Philadelphia Chamber, the Visit Philadelphia, et cetera, have all collaboratively jumped on. And it's actually become a major strategy. Now, we're not obviously comparing apples to apples with that example. However, there are a lot of similar elements that we have here with Bayer and others, advanced manufacturing with Hershey. I think some of the examples that you see with work that occurs among Fourth Economy and eConsult is the continued building on what Susan referred to of public-private partnerships. I'll give you a great example. I know as a local school board member, when we had the LVEDC come before us for the Hershey company, there was a lot of opportunities, I think, collaboratively that we as a county, with Susan, with Karen, et cetera, even Brooke, that could actually pull together to actually sell Lebanon County in a stronger way. And sometimes these processes actually reveal some of those opportunities in ways that you've never imagined. I went through this when I was in Monroe County with the Monroe County commissioners. And what we found after it was our university, our hospital, our county government, our private businesses worked so much, I don't want to say better, but more congruently in a way to sell the county.
Could you repeat the therapy that you said? It kind of broke up.
Cell and gene therapy,
Cell
which,
and gene.
Yep, yeah, and that's it's in the life sciences industry. I will tell you that Karen and Susan and I have even had offhand conversations about the fact that because of our proximity as a county to the Philadelphia region, and Lebanon Valley College has very strong life science programs, Lebanon County could also be potentially a player in getting some life science companies to this region. Bayer is here, but there could be others. And so sometimes what these processes do is working with a fourth economy or an e-consult, it allows you to reimagine other ways to get industry here to keep our residents employed in Lebanon County, keep the taxes in Lebanon County, and diversify our economy.
So this is like a pharmaceutical, am I understanding, because you're comparing it to Bayer?
It's it can be pharmaceutical, but it also can be, there's actually cell and gene therapy work that occurs at Penn State College of Medicine. It's the idea of looking at genes and precision medicine, personalized medicine, so that we can better deliver healthcare to you as a consumer and reach you where your genes are at.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying. Thank you.
If I may add on that a little bit, you know, we'll have a baseline understanding of our county. So, Joellen, it's going to look at local trends, you know, the context of growth and where the local economy leads or lags. It's also going to look at economic competitiveness with 5 critical ingredients like our sustainability, vibrant, you know, communities, and see how those, you know, helped with the CARES funding or what the need was. And then to be able to implement all that, because I think the CARES funding put a Band-Aid on a lot of companies, but there's going to be a lot of recovery needs moving forward. And if we can identify them and find resources to help with that, it'll be good for the county. And then what are the drivers for regional growth, for the county growth? You know, the report would also look at that. So there's going to be a lot of statistical data that we'll gather. And then there's going to be strategies on how we would move forward with those strategies.
And does this data become public data?
Yes.
If I may add on to the already very well-spoken comments by Susan and Jeffrey, as a community leader, and amongst an amazing group of people here, I feel that I've come to a point where I think I know what could be done next, but I'm really not sure. And so I could just be putting a lot of time and energy into programs and providing resources that may or may not hit the mark. And I think the theory behind this, in my eyes, is that we are all ready to dig in and continue to help Lebanon County heal through coronavirus impacts. But we need some guidance based on actual facts and data to understand where to best utilize our efforts and resources. And so none of us really have the time or the background to do full, complete data analysis and determine what those next steps should be. But we can certainly help to implement the suggestions at the end of that process. So I think we're all looking for what is that next step to help get Lebanon County back on its feet to recover quicker than maybe other areas. I would hate to look back in a year and think, wow, if we had only known that that would help, we could have done it sooner. So the point of this is to provide the right information so that we can react and respond and pool our time and resources as community leaders much faster and in a way that utilizes them to the best of what the community needs. And so it's really hard for us to just shoot in the dark on it. I know that none of us have really faced a pandemic like this before and the economic impact on our community. Therefore, I think we're all kind of scratching our heads thinking, well, what is the best thing for us to do? Well, that data analysis done the right way will give us some of that direction.
Jointly, you have convinced me. Thank you for being patient till I caught up with where you were at.
Can I just add one more piece to it before Brooke speaks into it? Sure. I asked Brooke to join Forward Together Lebanon because I think so often we just look at, you know, certain pieces, and her piece is so critical. I mean, she worked with so many of the social service agencies, that those agencies are there that really, I mean, jobs are there, they affect people's lives, but that is a large portion of it. And to keep that portion healthy and growing, and to have that into our study as well, I think will speak volumes. So Brooke, you want to add to that?
I did. I was just going to share, you know, I think a plan like this can be really powerful to connect us across sectors. You know, even in the nonprofit side of things, what we want is for our community members to be self-sufficient. You know, we have a lot of philanthropic investments that are supporting adult education, job training, those types of things. And I think it could be very powerful to align our philanthropic efforts with, you know, other sectors and bolster things that are working. You know, I think if we're able to leverage partnerships and show really good connectivity across sectors, it also elevates us to apply for larger grants that could support some work in our community. So I absolutely think something like this could be very beneficial in moving Lebanon County forward. So I appreciate you considering.
Okay. Any other comments, Jamie? Unmute, please. There we go.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. Shouldn't take more than a half hour. First of all, I just wanted to, just so we're clear, and maybe I misheard or maybe this isn't the impression, but when Jeffrey was talking about the cell and gene studies and Bayer and so on, this isn't just about pharmaceuticals. I don't know if Commissioner Litz, somewhere along the way when you had asked about Bayer, I just want to make sure it's not just about a pharmaceutical industry here. And
not this whole study, but I was curious about the cell and gene. I just wondered what they meant by it.
Okay.
Thank you.
One is a request, whether it's Jeffrey or Susan, could you please document that third entity that you pursued for a quote, even if they chose not to quote, just that we, you know, have some evidence or some record that we made an attempt on a third. It always helps in case somebody comes back and inquires how much effort to, you know, or how much competitiveness was included. How much effort is going to be needed on the part of the local participants? I heard Karen say that, you know, they're going to have they already have data sets available to them, I think, in either of these companies. But is there a lot of involvement where they come to town and say, all right, we need sit down meetings here, here, and here. We're going to have to gather all of this data. You know, how much effort is necessary on the local part?
So in terms of the data part of that, Jamie, very little. I will say this, Susan, Karen, and Brooke and I have talked about, we would want to, there's some things that we will also send them. Like, for example, Brooke has some updated ALICE reporting. We want to be, again, really inclusive. So there's a lot of existing things that we would send them as well. And we would also ask if there would be things that you would want to ensure that we would do that too. In terms of kind of like the next step of like implementing, that's really up to us as a group as to, you know, how much involvement, you know, is needed from that perspective. I think, you know, from our perspective, we would work this through the Forward Together Lebanon group, adding some of the additional stakeholders to it. But in terms of like meetings and such, we would work together to come up with what would be the right cadence so that we're still sensitive and thoughtful to everyone's time. But based on the discussions, I wouldn't anticipate that it's going to be like you know, too difficult to manage.
Okay.
To Karen's point, it would be really an integral element that right now we just don't have.
Okay. I asked because a lot of the same faces that are sitting here making the presentation and will be, you know, assisting with the study are also involved with the CARES grants and so many other aspects. And it's just a kind of going back to the same well.
Jamie, if I may add that I think the CARES grant application stripped of personal data would also provide a tremendous wealth of information to this kind of study as well. Mm-hmm. The kinds of businesses that applied, the need that they had, their stories, along with the data that's already part of just general data available, workforce issues, job openings, growth, things like that.
Yeah, they might be able to sort some trends out of that or something. Yeah, that's a good point. This is just a housekeeping thing. Would LVEDC be the client then of the? I don't think the county needs to be the client because you get a certain, by the CARES Act, you get a certain allocation. So it doesn't. The county should approve, as I've stated many times. The county should be approving each dollar of CARES. But in terms of being the client, would that be EDC then?
That's to be determined, Jamie. I think it would be great if the county was the client and we would be overseers, but you would need to determine that, however that works for the funding.
Okay. And
Mr. Chairman, are you have more, Jamie? Go ahead.
Just one more. One more is a quick one, and this goes back to the reference to David Brenton at DCED. It's my understanding that in order to kind of check the box that this was a CARES eligible item and that it was done within the time frame, which sounds like it can be, that sounds plausible or possible, I should say. What deliverable would be implemented first so that we're within that March 1 to December 30th window, so that again, if DCED, I have no idea how much follow-up DCED is going to be doing on this CARES, but so if they follow up and say, all right, demonstrate for us where this benefit came in 2020.
And Dave suggested that we have it in draft form. We have all the data in the document, and we have the strategies in the document, and that even if it's a small piece, that we try to implement at least one of the strategies.
Okay. So you don't know what that'll be until you see it, I guess.
Yeah. Correct.
In other words, we have to pass it so we know what's in it, right?
Right. I guess so, yeah.
Some people never forget.
No, you're right.
One of the things that we need to be conscious of is that the county did not actually receive CARES Act money themselves. And so if the county is the recipient of the contract, the county will be paying out of money that the county does not have. However, it's been authorized for the EDC to have CARES Act money. If it's approved through that, then it is much more understandably paid out by the EDC.
That's an excellent
I'm
point.
not trying to put it on you, Susan. It's just, I think that it's going to catch up if the money doesn't go through the right channels.
Yeah, I wouldn't want them to come back and say, well, we're going to push that into administrative and you weren't eligible. Administration. Yeah, good point.
And I don't mind doing that. I just don't want to be responsible if they come back next year and do their audit and say, hey, sorry, this wasn't eligible. And then the Economic Development Corporation is on the hook for the funding. I mean,
well, I think that's sums up my major concern, because I have no trust with the state administration, and I've seen them continue to try to gain retribution for the sins of Lebanon County. And we're going out on a limb here for $100,000 or $100,000 plus. And I certainly wouldn't want to see the EDC eligible for that. And I don't want to see the county eligible for that. And, Jeffrey, your opening comments, you made actually express concerns yourself that, we need to do this so that we please the state and they're okay with it and so on. I have some real concerns. I really do.
I would make sure that in the narrative, there is a paragraph that explains who you contacted and what the response was, and that we are moving forward with this in mind of putting COVID at the forefront. And you can wordsmith it, but you understand what I'm saying? That should be part of the narrative.
That's what David recommended, that it's going to take wordsmithing, and you really need to, like you just said, Joellen.
So, I mean, I guess I also go back to then, if the CARES Act funding was out, if there was an allocation to EDC, for economic recovery of the community. How is that defined? I mean, to me, this is the epitome of that. We are trying to figure out how to best utilize our energies for economic recovery, specifically due to COVID. So even if we work in the wording that is in the DCED guidelines so that it parrots back that wording, it makes sense.
The other thing, Commissioner Ames, that I would add is that I did speak with both Fourth Economy and eConsult about this very issue. And one of the things they both said they would be also happy to do is be a part of that wording, as well as be a part of any subsequent conversations, given their strong network of contacts within DCED, particularly within the governor's office, because they're all doing this for other places. And so they regularly do this. So, you know, my comments, as you alluded to, are not necessarily out of the concern from that vantage point. I think we have two prominent organizations that have, you know, even in many cases, former DCED folks at the helm that have very, very strong contacts and network. And I completely, you know, understand where you're coming from as well. The other thing I would say is, you know, to Commissioner Litz's standpoint, with their offer to do that, we would make sure that we wouldn't, you know, do anything that would put anyone at risk until we had certainty from the Commonwealth that this would be an absolute applicable expense.
Okay, you'll get it in writing?
Absolutely.
Right.
And we would work with you know, whomever was the chosen one to make sure that we had that.
Jeffrey, did you say that they are doing the same thing with other counties using their CARES Act funding?
I'm not sure about the CARES Act funding portion, because I mean, I know like Philly got theirs directly because of their size. So it's hard to, you know, compare that. York used it from the, you know, they had foundation funding. So, but we can double check that.
Because if we can set a precedent somewhere else as well, and the fact that they're willing to advocate on the state level is certainly important too.
I have a few comments, but Laura LeBeau has her hand raised. So Laura, would you like to give us your question?
Yeah, I was just curious when Jeffrey was mentioning that eConsult and Fourth Economy could be engaged to work together. What would that cost, and how would you go about making that determination to, in fact, engage both of them together?
So what I would say to that is, you know, Susan and I actually had that email exchange earlier. So what I can tell you, Laura, is that both CEOs of both firms know each other extremely well. They have done this work together. We have not, because of, you know, stage-wise where we are in the discussions, we haven't thrown that out yet to both of them. However, they have done this extremely well before, as I mentioned in two other examples. So, you know, again, in this case, you know, what I would say is we would look to, you know, almost have a threshold, you know, from the commissioners, don't go above this amount type of a thing within the, you know, within what the EDC was allocated. And then we would work with them to ensure that it fit the spirit of what we wanted collectively to come out in the report, but then more importantly in the implementation, and make sure that it didn't exceed that amount.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any other comments, or Jamie or anyone else?
Will we vote on this tomorrow?
Yeah, you're well, I mean, you can.
Or don't we have to?
Yeah, the only vote I'm thinking of, I mean, unless you want to give a vote tomorrow to proceed so that is additionally on the record. Really, you know, if the EDC is willing to be the client, then the only vote you'll really have is when it comes to pay the bill. But if you desire to just add a little more to it, you certainly could do it as an authorization to proceed. I mean, I don't think you need to. I think your real obligation is the funding, where the funding is coming from, and that funding needs to be authorized by you before it's dispersed. So, okay, I guess that's your choice then. But it would need to be tomorrow because today's a workshop, not an advertised. The only workshop we took action was the one for the CARES grant that I had advertised as such.
And I'm not trying to present that I'm double dipping or trying to cover two things with one, but we do have some other studies that have been requested and some of us have acknowledged are needed. And one is a housing study for Lebanon County that would look at the needs, the deficiencies, trends, and so on, rates of rent, and just the whole picture of where we are in terms of the assets of housing. And so I know it's beyond the scope of this, but if these folks do anything in that area and they're going to be covering, you know, parallel with it, if we could add to that from the county's point of view, if we're going to spend 60 grand on a housing study, maybe for 20, because they're doing a lot of work in our county. I'm just asking, it's a layperson's view of this, but the other one is, so that's housing is one, and the other is the skilled labor gap or shortage that, you know, coming out of this thing, we have a lot of businesses investing here and expanding here and coming from other areas of the country. And we don't have the labor to meet those demands. You know, people come up to me just because it's a popular thing to say, well, hey, we need more jobs. No, we need more workers has been the real cry. So again, that's another part of, you know, what we need to get a grip on is what do we have in a pool out there for, and what's our way of addressing that gap or that need for more workers and skilled workers, especially, I think, in the technology jobs that are coming our way. So those are just two things. If there's any way of, I know it's beyond the scope of this, but if there is any way when you're talking to these folks that any of that would be part of it, or we could get some light shed on it, that would be good. And my only other comment is I want to thank all of you. I didn't do that at the beginning, but for all your work on the first round, that went very smoothly and very professionally and efficiently. And on the eve of the second round, I just want to make sure that you are aware of how much we appreciate all that you've done. So that's all I have. Joella.
Yeah, the other thing that I was wondering, what I've been observing is that there is real competition for, as Commissioner Phillips pointed out, for workers. So if one is paying 14, the next one is going to offer 16 and either $100 or $1,000 sign-on bonus, and it's just like all helter-skelter. Will there be any direction to businesses on what is appropriate salary? I mean, is it clearly and only the one with the most money gets the workers, or is there something else to this that we're missing? And could that help all the businesses? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, I think, Joellen, like salary plays a big part in where people decide they'd like to work, but then also what they enjoy doing. So if you take someone in the hospitality and they're getting $10 an hour, and you say there's a wonderful manufacturing job over here that'll pay you $18 an hour, chances are they're not going to go to that because it's not a place they want to be, you know. Same with the distribution center. So I think salary helps if you're in kind of in that same field or a field of interest, but it's not, I don't think it's if we could get everybody to pay $20 an hour, I think, or you get a large segment, the people that enjoy hospitality aren't going to go over to the $20 an hour job. So I don't think there's an easy answer.
Even within the same segment, they're just job hopping, you know, he's going to give me more, he's going to give me a bonus. And it's like, there's no stability, and it's really hurting businesses.
Yeah, and that goes back to the individual. You know, you have to start way back with some of these basic skills, and I think educate students early on of, you know, what the value of insurance and different benefits that a company gives you, pension, et cetera, so they don't hop for the quarter an hour.
You know, I think the other thing, Joelle, and that plays into this, Jeffrey mentioned the ALICE study. And so that's something United Way is actively involved in, and it stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. And so what that means is it captures the individuals above the 100% of the poverty line, people who are working, but they still can't make ends meet. And so, you know, I'm happy to share the study with you. We just have refreshed data sets for Lebanon County, which I can share. And if you add up the poverty rate plus the people that fall into this ALICE category, we're at about 38% for Lebanon County. And so I think, you know, people are looking for how can I make more money because they're working and still can't meet that survival budget. You know, they can't make it work. So I would absolutely love to share that with you if you're interested in seeing that.
Yes, and I got most of Alice. I get asset, limited, constrained income, employees. What was the I?
Income constrained, employed.
Thank you.
Yep.
If I may add a couple of quick comments to your point, Commissioner Litz, there's a lot of things that factor into whether somebody jumps a job or not. Some of it is transportation to that location. Some of it is the shift that they're able to work.
You froze, Karen. That's a great look for you. She says I always take her picture when she isn't looking the best. I didn't do this, I promise.
Yeah, so she was just explaining the different barriers that people have for employment. And so we're starting to break those down even further to look at the barriers and say, how can we address some of these barriers so that they go away? And this employment issue is, we've been spinning our wheels for a long time, and we're just hoping, I just partnered with Lancaster EDC and some others in the region, and we're thinking if we put the research behind the data, the research, and combine that maybe it'll show something that we haven't been able to get our fingers on for the last 10 years, and that we'd be able to start a new approach and find a solution.
Okay. Anything else? Has Karen thought out yet or no?
Yep. She's gone.
Oh, she's gone. Okay.
I restarted her computer. Okay. So I would feel, before you take the vote, I would feel more comfortable if you could put something that, you know, that if PCD comes back and says it's not eligible, that the county's responsible and not the Economic Development Corporation.
Of course.
For the fee.
Okay.
I think Karen is trying to get back in the way it looks.
Yeah. Can you bring her back in, Dawn?
It should be coming.
Yeah.
I don't know where she's at though.
Well, I think if I could, further address that. I think that no matter how you would word it, approve it, whatever, the county ultimately is responsible. The CARES funding has been granted to the county. If there's a major concern about that, then I guess that concern could be fatal to this, I guess. But you know, it's not really a who's responsible. I think that's clearly the county. I think what's on EDC is to make sure that it's
eligible.
That it's eligible, right? That that's not a concern. So
I think Jeffrey promised to get that in writing.
Yeah.
There I was waxing eloquently, such amazing words, and my internet crapped out.
What's that again?
I said there I was, like so eloquent, and the internet crapped out. So
yeah.
But I think you got the point, as I can tell by the conversation, that we may want to piggyback onto this study with other contracts, but they should be very clearly written differently. So if you wanted to utilize the data that was already being collected and then add into it separately through the county on other studies, But the two of them should not overlap in any way, because that's what will bring in those questions as to, are we misusing the CARES Act money?
Yes, right. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Do you have a desire to do some sort of an action to move it on tomorrow, or are you okay with it proceeding and addressing that when the bill comes due, so to speak?
I think,
and if I could just one more, does anyone know, is the firm looking, do they have a sort of a signing, is any of it up front, or do they bill it all at the completion? That's probably important.
According to their contract, some of them will bill 40% and 20% and move forward as they complete it.
Okay, so you actually would need to be authorizing an expenditure at the outset, it sounds like. Sorry.
And we do have to make a motion tomorrow.
Sorry, Commissioner Ames, I had a feeling that might have been the case.
no, I had a thought, but I think your discussion now, I still have some concern about taking action, releasing funds until I see an assurance from DCED that they would look favorably upon this, so that none of us get stuck with egg on our face.
Well, that's a tough one. We're entrusting a lot of this to the folks that are reviewing all the 200 plus grants that we gave out, in the last 2 weeks, and that all that is, once that's audited, how, and Bill, I go to the trust issue because it is a concern that if someone wants to, in audit, create a problem for you, it's not difficult to do. And then it's going to be a back and forth fight to, make our case, I think, is what it ends up being in January, February, or March, once the audit takes place. And if they ding us on something, I think we're just going to have to fight to, make it clear, what our intentions and how we saw it. And that, I think, would apply to this as well. So these are tough ones because the county is on the hook, and it's $10 million total if they really want to be, obnoxious. Yeah. So,
Jeffrey, are any of the conversation you've had with the state in writing at this point, like emails?
I haven't actually had conversations with, Susan has had conversations with DCD. My conversations were just with Fourth Economy and eConsult about, would they be willing to help us with making sure that whatever language, to Karen's earlier point, and then, when we would choose one of them, for example, would they also be willing to speak to their colleagues to make sure that whatever they do fits what DCED would expect? And that answer was yes. But Susan has, I think, Susan, you've had in writing, right?
No, just by phone. They're smarter up there than putting it in writing. So
you have to ask. You have to be bold enough to ask.
I did. Yeah, I did with him. So maybe
you can also word an email from you. This is my understanding. If I'm wrong, please respond in kind. And otherwise, we're going to be moving forward with the understanding that this is acceptable. So there's different ways you can get an answer.
Yeah, usually when I put it in writing, he responds by a telephone call. So that's what makes it challenging.
Stay positive.
All right. A lot of gray in this one, but we can get that moved to the black, I think, and get it, clearer. And I'm prepared to discuss it tomorrow and to vote to take it to get a motion to talk about it further tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Does that conclude our business, Jamie, for this segment?
I think so, yeah. So plan to bring Susan in tomorrow requesting a motion, or are you prepared to do that? Yeah, I think we have a bit of time. We can do that probably at 10:30 or 10:45, somewhere on the agenda.
Is that all right?
Okay. We'll just have you make a presentation and go with it that way. Just presentation for the purposes of a motion, not this again.
Okay.
Not necessary.
And Susie, you have some audio issues, I think, maybe if you're coming in tomorrow.
We're switching over from Verizon to Comcast because it's ongoing.
Okay,
it's ongoing.
Just so you're aware. Okay, very good. Anything else? Not? Okay.
9:30 tomorrow.
So we don't have the insurance people today?
That's tomorrow morning.
That's tomorrow,
Oh, tomorrow.
I think, after the meeting. Yep.
I'm sorry, I got my things mixed up. Dawn, if you sent something different after I left, could you send it again? I deleted it thinking that it was what you gave me. And then after I read your email prior to that, I'm thinking, whoops, maybe my finger was too quick on the draw there.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
So Jamie, you said 10:30 tomorrow?
Let me
Confirm it.
Yeah, Dawn's been managing. Dawn, what do you, she has the agenda carved out. Where would it be?
Mike Anderson's a little after 10, like 10:15, so probably 10:30.
Okay.
Because he's got about 6 things on his list.
Okay. Hopefully 10:30 then. Just, you can come in through the
I'll send Susan the link.
Okay, there you go. You'll get the link from Dawn. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right, folks, thank you very much. And we'll,
thank you. Good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.